we're going to continue our discussion of North America. When we left off, we were talking about resources places had. And we talked about fossil energy and the fact that the U.S. was pretty heavily dependent on fossil energy resources. I have no idea. Beyond that, we also had what we call hydroelectric. And the Hoover Dam was one of those cases. Hoover Dam was built in the height of the Great Depression. Franklin Roosevelt was president of the United States. And it was built to bring power and water mostly to Las Vegas, but also to Los Angeles and that part of the valley. But it's bringing water to the desert, an area where people aren't supposed to live. But suddenly, they're going to be able to. Now, there's problems with it. It creates Lake Mead. This is Lake Mead behind Hoover Dam. This was an incredible accomplishment that we did. But today, Lake Mead is very, very low. Well, because of droughts that have happened, in the fact that they've had to release some water. Because the way hydroelectric works is the water drives a turbine, and that's what makes the electricity. So they have to release a certain amount to drive the turbines. So you can look at this picture. This picture was taken several years ago. But see this white line around here? That's the old water line at Lake Mead. Okay? It's significantly lower than this now. More people have moved to the desert. They're using more water than they ever have. And it causes problems. Our use of hydroelectric power has stopped the flow of major rivers. The Colorado River, at one point, flowed all the way into the Gulf of Baja California. It doesn't reach it anymore. It goes dry before it reaches that. Because we've got so much of the river blocked in order to provide electricity and water to people in those western states. So there's some problems with using this kind of electricity. It's good electricity, it's cheap, and it's pretty friendly to the environment compared to burning coal, but it's got issues with it, okay? Plus you lose a lot of your resource whenever you're using hydroelectric because your water evaporates. Your resources constantly disappear, okay? Other problems we have, well, I don't know if you call it a problem, but other things we have is we have our highway system. You don't have to write this one down. But our national highway system, we have 4 million miles of roads. And our interstate system is not that old. Our interstate system was established by President Eisenhower in the 1950s, okay? Probably after some of your grandparents were born. It's just not that long ago. And if you ever look at our interstates, you ever notice our interstates are all connecting military bases? They were built between bases. They were built really for the military to carry things back and forth. And we're allowed to use it. We're actually building this massive interstate here, this corridor called the Super Corridor that'll go from Canada all the way down to Mexico. And it's connecting all these interstates. And one of them is going to go just down the road from there. You ever go through Lufkin and you see those signs go from Lufkin to Houston where it says future home of Interstate 69? That's this super corridor that they're going to put through here. And it's going to be an interstate, a four-lane plus interstate from Mexico all the way up to California or to Canada. Okay? It's a way to move goods. All right, you need both these definitions. Let's talk about culture. There's two kinds of culture. There's ethnocentrism and ethno-relativism. That one on the left is ethnocentric. 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 People that are ethnocentric believe that their culture is the dominant culture worldwide and is superior to all other cultures. Okay? It's more important than other cultures. Ethno-relative believes that all cultures have their own value and no one culture is superior to another. They're just all different. They're all equal but related to each other. For most of my life, we have been moving in this nation from an ethnocentric to an ethno-relative culture. We're going from an area of our culture is better than everybody, like the U.S. traditionally was, to this idea of, all cultures have a value and we should respect it. But in the last 10 to 15 years, I'd say, it seems that we're swinging back to this ethnocentrism and this idea of my culture, my country right or wrong, my culture is better than your culture kind of thing. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that we may have swung back a little bit to ethnocentrism? Anybody got any idea? No? You're just mumbling? Okay, it is a power struggle. There's one big one. We've been at war with Islamic countries since 2001. Really 2002 is when we went in. So 2002 to 2020, 18 years we've been at war. And that will change your mind about culture. We'll start to redefine our enemies as less, because it's hard to go to war against somebody if you really believe they're the same. Okay? It's much easier if you could redefine them as an enemy. And I think that's part of what's happened here, is we've started redefining things. Or redefining it back to what it used to be. It's kind of disturbing to me. I would like to think that that we're going to be over here. I would like to believe that we would value all cultures. But the other side of me goes, I still fly my flag. I'm still pretty proud of my country. So, we're all probably somewhere in between there. Talk about culture. What are we talking about? What is a culture?
Beliefs.
Okay. People's beliefs.
Way of living.
Way of living. Good explanation. Your language, your religion, your food, the way you dress. All of that is part of your culture.
Wouldn't doctrine be fit into
Would what?
Doctrine?
Doctrine can fit into culture, yes.
Religion?
Absolutely, under religion, absolutely. And you don't have to write these down because we've got a bunch of cultural areas. And we're all part of different cultural groups. You might be an Italian American, or, and grew up with Italian food, or you might be like, a mutt like me. My family is all from way down in South Texas, almost in Mexico, and I grew up eating really good, authentic Mexican food my whole life, and I love that culture. I think it's awesome, and it's really, really cool, and you can't get it here, and it makes me cry. And I look like that'd be my culture, but that's kind of the way I grew up. Maybe you grew up going to Louisiana all the time eating Cajun food, and that's your culture. That could be it. Your culture may be very religious. Cultures can be geographic, they can be religious, they can be any number of things. But geographically, we start to see that there's some weird cultural groups that happen. Because we consider ourselves East Texas, right? Does Texas have one cultural group? No, we have one cultural stereotype. You know, everybody thinks of us as running around with cowboy hats, boots, wanting to fight everybody with guns on our sides, and that's mostly true. But at least most of the Texans I know. But in reality, do the Cowboys in West Texas have much in common at all with people here in East Texas? Now, we're two different species, okay?
They're mostly Mexican.
Well, it depends on where you are. In South Texas they are. West Texas not so much. Yeah, it depends on where you are. Depends on where you are. Like my family down in South Texas, you get down there, you better know what a quinceañera is. You better know. My mother gets invited to a quinceañera 2 or 3 times a week from all of her former students and stuff. It's just what's going to happen. But you could live right here in East Texas your whole life and never know what it is. Curiosity. How many know what a quinceañera is? Wow, that's pretty good. One person knew in the other class. So, Rigo, he was it. But it's not really part of our culture for the most part, right? If you know about it, you probably know about it from a movie or something. So there's all these different regions, and these regions are going to move a little bit as we go through, and you'll see that different maps have them in different places, and we won't always go with this exact set of regions, but you have the South down here, but when you look at it, Texas and Oklahoma for that matter, could they just as easily have put the line here and drop this over here with New Mexico and them? Probably. Texas is every bit as west as it is south, okay? We're kind of that weird place where, okay, where do you fit? When the Civil War happened and we picked sides, all these guys should have gone with the South, all these guys should have gone with the North, and we should have said, screw you, we're just going to do our own thing. Because we had nothing in common with the South, really. Really, we did. There were 15 slaves in Texas. That's not true, there were more than that, but there weren't very many. So, this will sometimes be pushed over here in the West and sometimes not. Also, there's the weird concept that for some reason Hawaii and Alaska are together down here. Hawaii and Alaska by no means should be in the same area. One is way up north and one is almost in Japan, but that's just life. All right, so the first region we're going to talk about is the Northeast region. If you go to Europe, and you say you're in America, there are 2 places they think you're from. They think you're from New York or they think you're from Texas. That's the 2 images they have for Americans. Either you're, a gangster in New York running around stabbing people, or you're a cowboy in Texas and God knows what you're doing. I don't care. Leave me alone. I'm so tired of that thing. All right. Write these down. So. Things drove me crazy for a week. The Northeast has a lot of coal, a lot of natural gas, and fishing and farming are the big, kind of the big industries in that area. It is, excuse me, it's, can't speak today. It's boundaried by the Appalachian Mountains, and it has the largest megalopolis in the world. A megalopolis is where cities conurbate. It means they grow together. We'll see that word conurbation in a minute. But cities grow together. And you can't recognize when you leave one city and go into another. The largest one in the United States is here. And it stretches from Boston up here all the way down to Washington, D.C. So you have basically one city when you're going down the interstate. you ever get to go on that trip with me, we drive that one, it's pretty cool. This was the oldest industrial part of the United States. It was built along the fall line. If you don't know what a fall line is, it's where the mountains stop and everything starts to flatten off. And it's called the fall line because it's where the water speeds up dramatically. You tend to have waterfalls. This is where, when we had water-powered factories, where they always put them, because it's where you have the most power in your rivers. Think about it, if you gotta have a water wheel, where do you want it? Well, I don't know, waterfall will make it go really well, right? We have a lot of juice. So this is your fall line right here, kind of right at the base of the Appalachians. Historically, this has been the most populated region in the United States. That's why you get these weird stuff where you get these little bitty states that you look at, but they get lots of votes. It's because they're real small states, but millions of people live there on top of each other.
How many people live in Rhode Island?
Well, Rhode Island's very small. This is it right here. Very small, but there's a lot of people in it, okay? Again, they're shoved in on top of each other. There's a lot of people, but they're all cousins. They all drive a truck and none of them like each other. Been to Rhode Island. They will argue with you about anything. Anything.
Like the sky
You
is
said they're all cousins?
They're the only state that has voted against every war resolution the U.S. has ever had. We want to go to war with Hitler. No, I don't think so. You can't even agree on Hitler. They voted against the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They just vote no. They vote no to everything, okay?
But else says no, they say yes.
Yeah. All right, here's a definition for you. You can shorten this. I asked you to. This definition is way too long. But it's conurbation. Conurbation is just a region that has a number of cities or large towns that grow together. Okay? One continuous city. Dallas-Fort Worth. Great example of conurbation, or a megalopolis. Baltimore to Washington. The New York tri-state area, where New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, they all kind of grow together.
Wait, what was your definition again?
What did I say?
You said the region with cities or large towns that grow together?
That's a good definition, good and short. Y'all have all been to Dallas, Fort Worth, right? You're driving through it and you can be driving through and you don't know if you're in Dallas, Fort Worth, Irving, Garland, Grand Prairie, Mesquite, Denton. They're all just one city all the way through. That's conurbation.